enablement, Presales and all. So in a nutshell, I was living a very peaceful life in various organizations, be it services or product companies. I was pretty much happy with my comfort zone of functional test automation that I earned after a lot of hard work in last 14 years. But then somewhere around 1 year back or so, I was part of a services company and into a practice team wherein you can't say no to any new technologies, right? So I was given an opportunity to work on RPA. And I had an inkling in my mind that I am diverging from my comfort zone of test functional automation. But soon I realized that it's no more a divergence, but there is a lot of convergence between the functional test automation and that RPA. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today, the convergence of test automation and RPA. So by the time they are adjusting it, how many of you are working on software test automation projects? Just raise your hands. Quite a good number. How many of you have worked on TOSCA? Oh, good. How many of you are working on RPA projects? Quite a few. Good. So I'm sure by the end of this session and year to go, the convergence will actually be in place, and next year if we meet, I will see more hands joining when I ask the same question again. So this is a quick agenda. We will go through the RPA, what's going on in RPA, how the CXOs are looking at how the CXOs and the leaders in the industry are looking at RPA as a business, how the practitioners like us are looking at the RPA, that is a new wave coming up to our way, and then more importantly, how the analysts are looking at RPA. So before I start,
all want to be recognized as the lead.
So actually I wanted to show a small video.
We all want to be recognized as the leaders in our field, applauded for our talents and our work. But success is not a moment in time. It's a process. It's a commitment to practice, refine, and perfect. That process and drive for greatness is what inspired Tricentis to transform testing for DevOps. Much like a musician uses her tool to practice and perfect her craft, we use our technology to help businesses automate manual processes to accelerate innovation. And the process has paid off. Our research and development in model-based automation has made Tricentis the leader in continuous testing. But now, we're entering a new era, one where our technology and resources are converging to transform far more of the enterprise. And you're part of the movement. We're expanding our resilient automation across the modern enterprise, orchestrating it more broadly to accelerate digital transformation and optimize the customer experience. This is an opportunity to be part of something even more powerful, Together, we will enable your organization to unlock the power of automation across the enterprise, and the possibilities are endless. This is the sound of automation at the speed of change. This is Tricentis.
So, this is Tricentis, and the opportunities are definitely endless. So we are talking about the opportunities for test automation into a new wave that is coming up, that is RPA. So let's talk about convergence. The discussion is around automation, and automation is definitely insanely hot. And so when it is about the new wave of RPA, which is another form of automation again, I feel if this RPA automation has to take off from here, or automation has to succeed, it's not going to happen without you. It's not going to happen without you. Because the basic objective of success for any automation is, as even Mahesh said in his speech, is about resilient. And the whole idea of creating resilient bots or resilient test cases resides rather in the room today, that you are the software testers. Just a few numbers before we proceed. So it is expected in next 3 years that merely around 5 million, and by the way, we have around 4 million software testers today globally available. So 5 million new jobs to be created in RPA world. So they can cater to any roles, but there are 5 million new roles to be created in RPA. Where these roles will be filled from? And I bet on it, it is not going to be without you. So there is a lot of convergence, and the convergence begins here. So how many of you remember DevOps? Good. What was it? It was nothing but a convergence. A convergence of various segments of the industry. The segments like collaboration, versioning, version controlling, issue tracking, configuration management, continuous testing, and test automation. When they converge together, they called DevOps. And then when convergence begins, it was a party. There was a little bit party. Everybody was talking about DevOps. It was a buzzword. Every vendor in the world was a DevOps vendor, right? What is happening next? There is other segments of the industry, the segments like business process management, integration platforms, collaboration, process mining, OCR, document management, and more importantly, test automation. They are collaborating, they are converging. And when they started converge to each other, this is called RPA. And believe me, the RPA is going to be a bigger party, much, much bigger party than DevOps. Because it is trying to dip into the DevOps above. But if you look at the RPA crowd today, the hype of the RPA, it sounds like a rave party, right? Let's try to define. If I can read through the definition of RPA, it is like robotic process automation is a digital enablement technology that predominantly leverages a combination of user interface and surface level features to automate routine, predictable data transcription work. Sounds a little boring, right? But that's how the kind of tasks that are being pervaded in the organization today, and that needs to be automated. So by the term of RPA, which is robotic process automation itself, is actually not correct. I mean, there are no robots. There are 0 robots when it comes to the RPA today. There are no processes involved. There are tasks. You're automating tasks. The interstitial tasks which are part of your process that needs to be automated. So the RPA by its term is actually not correct. There are no robots. It's not about processes anymore, but it's all about automation. And it's the same level, same kind of automation that you guys are familiar with. So there is a convergence. And what we are automating as part of RPA today, so if you consider roughly around 75 to 80 use cases those are considered for RPA automation today, I would like to categorize them broadly into three major categories. The category one is, I would like to call it as a poor man's integration. What does that mean? A poor man integration happens when you have a legacy system at one hand, which probably might not have any API associated with it, and you have another system which is trying to communicate with the legacy system. Then you make use of RPA, make use of the surface layer integration, scrape the UI, and make that communication happen between the legacy system and the other system. And why would you need to do so? It's probably because of various reasons. Reason one could be you're falling short of budget to just scrap that legacy code or legacy system. You might have a bespoke application without any API. Or you might have two fantastic APIs, but they are not integrated with each other. So that's the very first case. Broadly, you can find some use cases as on today that are covered by RPA and fall under poor man's integration. The next one would be augmenting or automating the manual tasks. Now, classically, we have seen in RPA today is like a user who is probably processing an invoice. So user gets some invoice in form of PDF. The PDF can be structured or it can be unstructured. But what user is supposed to do is probably retrieve the data from that PDF in terms of the first name of the customer, last name, company name, and whatnot. Read the data, feed it in some 3-4 other systems, or verify it from 3-4 other systems. So this is like a mundane job that somebody is performing day in, day out, maybe 100 times a day, or 100 documents a day. So those kinds of jobs are being automated and fall under a category number 2, that is augment or automate the manual task. The third is more important, which is about some critical checks or validating some critical checks. Typically, when we talk about a privacy protection policies such as GDPR, right? I hope you are working in most of the organizations who are being impacted by GDPR now. So what is GDPR? GDPR is one of the privacy protection policy, wherein as a user, the organization needs to be share an information to and fro, and you have a choice or you have a right of opting in for that information. When you opt in, what happens? Your information is being fed into some 5-6 different systems in the organization. When you have a choice of opt in, you also have a choice of opt out. When you opt out, the organization has to respond. It has to respond by performing certain manual activities so that the user or the utmost care has been taken to protect the privacy of the user who has chosen to opt out of the organization. And these checks or these manual tasks can be automated using RPA. So I see a third category which is of utmost importance for these compliance checks or compliance activities, which also can be automated using RPA. When we talk about the value proposition of RPA, it is revolving around 4 major areas. The first one being the accuracy. So accuracy is around errors that a human can do, and subsequently the maintenance or the correction that needs to be performed because of those errors. You might have a data entries that needs to be performed accurately. You copy data from one system and paste it on another system. So all those areas or all those use cases we find fall under accuracy, and there is a value proposition of RPA. Secondly, productivity. Yes, I mean, it is quite obvious that, let's say you are renewing your insurance, right? And today the renewal of the insurance takes around 2-3 days. What if you apply RPA to it and get the renewal done in probably 2 hours or even in minutes? So there is definitely a productivity gain. And obviously, we talked about some 2 or 3 use cases here wherein we are getting rid of the mundane job, so it adds employee satisfaction. There is a pro and there is a con. So there is an impact of RPA on some of the jobs. Partially, the answer is yes. Third, we have already spoken about compliance. So there are compliance checks. We spoke about an example of GDPR, but there are any compliance check that needs to be automated. There is a value proposition that RPA brings to this category as well. Fourth one is simplicity. There is no need to talk about everything, and in fact, Pradeep was saying that we are already running late, so I was supposed to walk through some manual activities, but thanks to RPA, I have another video quickly recorded here, so I will move to that. Video. This video is, what you are going to see here is an HR onboarding process. The HR onboarding process will read data from an Orange CRM, the new employee. It will capture some of the details, go into some 2 or 3 systems like Salesforce and SAP, and create the same user and assign admin access to it. So this is the workflow that you are going to take a look at. But before you do so, just take a quick look at the way the workflow that you can see. It is exactly same as what you have seen in the automation. So you can see some data parameterization happening, and we have such resilient bots which are model-based. Over 150 technologies available today. There is an exception handler, and you can configure it the way you want based on the exception that you want to catch. And we have actually started with the execution. Execution is very fast, so it is going through Orange CRM, boom, boom, and then it is, the execution is complete. But I'm not much worried about the speed of the execution. What we are doing here is, once the execution is done, we are publishing the bot for production. We will talk about this a little later, but the message here is there is a faster deployment. You can create and maintain bots in probably minutes or in a few hours rather than days and weeks. Again, the message was, that's why I paused the video in between. For you guys who are into automation, doesn't it look familiar with what you are doing today, right? You are pretty much aware of what workflows needs to be automated, and that's what even RPA does the same thing. So you have to design your workflows. You have to think of where your reusability will come from, what data needs to be supplied. So all those things are pretty much similar. I do agree that there are certain edges of the circle which are a little bit different than what automation is all about today. So you might have to do, or you might require subject matter expert. You might require some amount of process mining, which is on the edge of the circle. But if we really focus on the core of those intersection of the circles, this is where the software testers or automation testers today will really converge. And this is the crux of the success of automation, be it functional automation or robotic process automation. What this area is all about creating, managing, maintaining resilient artifacts. When it comes to RPA, it is about bots. When it comes to automation, it is about your tests. But the more important message here is you have to create, maintain, and manage the resilient bots. We already spoke about resilient in earlier speeches, so I will not focus more on what resilient means. But you are aware of the challenges of it. You are aware of what is the importance of object when it comes to maintenance. You are aware of the dynamically created objects. You are aware of the challenge of the state of the application before you run your test and after you run your test. So you are aware of all those challenges, which are typically posed during maintenance. And those challenges remains same when it comes to robotic process automation. So let's look at some of the commonalities that are there in the life cycle of software test automation and robotic process automation. So I will, these are first the common areas. We will look into what is the difference. There is no slide to it. I want myself to refrain from touching this point, but so we have office in Pune, which is in Maharashtra, and in the recent past, we have seen a fantastic political convergence in Maharashtra, right? So you are aware of it. There is a common minimum program with such convergence happens. And here with STA and RPA, you have a maximum common program. So once the slide is finished, you will see there is a maximum common program between STA and RPA. And this is more ethical convergence, I would say. There is nothing wrong in political convergences, but you can run on a common minimum program in political convergence. Technically speaking, you have a lot of maximum common program between software test automation and robotic process automation. So I will not go through all the details. We are already aware of the points that are covered here. In the life cycle, we have requirements, environment, design, execute, and monitor. Just to name few, we have to gather requirements. We have to be attentive to the detailing of those requirements. What are the prioritization, the planning? So everything remains the same when it comes to robotic process automation. Let me quickly go to what is the difference. The difference is in environment. So because obviously the use case of robotic process automation is into production. I mean, if you take an example of a net banking application, you will test the application so that it works perfectly as per requirements into production. You will test it manually, and to save time, you will probably automate your test. But once that is pushed into production, what if the user creation takes 2 days, right? So you will automate that particular process in production, and that's where the environment is different for testing, and the environment is different for robotic process automation. So for testing, you will mostly deal with pre-production, and in RPA, you will deal with the actual production environment. And there is an impact of this everywhere. So for example, if we talk about execute, right? So for execution in test automation, if you don't have any particular API or environment ready, you have an option to simulate that environment, right? But there is no such option in terms of RPA. Rather, you have to be more careful about the security when it comes to RPA in terms of execution, because you're actually hitting the production data. This is just to show the exact replica of what is there in the automation convergence between an automation life cycle and test automation and robotic process automation. So you do, on the left side, the software test automation is done for faster test execution, whereas this is for faster process execution. You eliminate manual task in RPA, you eliminate manual testing in functional automation, and more importantly, you need to maintain resilient in both the sides, be it testing automation or robotic process automation. This is about how the industry will now look into RPA. So we have a software test automation on one side, we have robotic process automation on the other, and today organizations are taking decisions quite separately when it comes to test automation and RPA. They're not thinking as an enterprise integrated solution for an organization. But the situation will change in a couple of years from now, and then the decisions will not be independent decisions for functional automation and RPA, but there will be solutions available, the thought process will change, and decisions will be made based on the integrated enterprise automation. This is about RPA Hive Cycle, and this is again exactly the same what we have seen in test automation, right? So some 10, 15 years ago, when automation was on the Hive cycle, we all thought that it is going to be a magic. I mean, everything that is doing manual today will be automated. So we were having this phase, which is like of a magic or Hive. Then suddenly, the complexity of the application increased, the test or automated test failed, and we realized that it's no more a magic, right? So we have to take into consideration a lot of things. There are dynamic objects. The state of the application matters the most when you want to run two tests in sequence. And then we realized that there has to be a resiliency. So that's the curve. And where we are in terms of RPA today, it's somewhere here. So we are still in a stage of illusion that all my processes will be automated, but a phase will come wherein we will understand the disillusion caused by bot downtime, and the resilience will play a major role. I will not go through all the details, but these are some of the findings of the analysts like Forbes, Forrester, Gartner, who are reiterating the same thing. RPA is a next wave. It is going to remain for, Mahesh defined it for 10 years for AI ML, RPA probably of the same age. This is the finding from most popular jobs in 2020. They are going to remain as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotic process automation. So what this again confirms that let recession probably clobber the other segments of the industry, but RPA is going to grow. Again, some of the market trends, and which also indicates, looking at the time, there are only 2 minutes left for me. So again, show the continuous growth of RPA that is expected to happen till 2025. Tricentis, when I asked about this question, not all of you are aware of Tricentis, but automation is into our DNA. We are into functional test automation and entering into robotic process automation in the recent past. So we have an enterprise existence around 1,600 employees, organization already using the Tricentis functional tester, and it is equally powerful because of the model-based resilient automation that we provide. With RPA, we can discuss a lot about when you visit our booth of Tricentis RPA, but we have a very low total cost of ownership. This is the RPA Studio, which is again in line with what we have seen in the functional test automation. A little bit of a flow kind of user interface added on top of what you might have seen in the functional test automation. And this is because it is running on the production environment, so you need to monitor it a lot. You have to take a good control on the bots. The monitoring happens through RPA cockpit. So all these things we will be demonstrating during a workshop that is happening in the afternoon session. These are some of the data on certification. Certification is free. By the way, the entire RPA Studio is free. So if you want to really take a look at how RPA, you want to get a feel of it, it is going to be free for life. You can definitely visit our booth outside, ask any questions that you have in mind about RPA. If you have your individual interest, definitely talk to us. If you have somewhere organization level interest aligned to it, looking for any help, definitely talk to us. We have our technical plus sales team sitting on the booth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Anyone out there? Yes, that gentleman, yes. No questions? All right. Thank you so much, sir. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen.